So welcome to today's Greater Life CoffeeCast. And my question is today, are you operating in your sweet spot? And in previous CoffeeCasts, you may have heard me reference the concept of the ikigai, the Japanese idea of how you find your purpose and live a beautiful, rich life. And today, as I sit here, having travelled up with my children to spend some time with their grandmother, my mother, I am actually reminded of some words I wrote in my own book nearly a decade ago now about this idea of finding your sweet spot. And in it, I referenced my mother because she had begun running a B&B, a guest house, and over time was becoming more and more disheartened with the early morning rises. And so for her, the joy was being sucked out of something she really loved. You know, she had an award-winning guest house and, you know, a host of regulars, but the joy was being sucked out of something that she did love doing, that was profitable and that was a much appreciated service. Because, let's be honest, my mum is not a morning person, or is certainly not a morning person until she's had a good cup of coffee. So she wasn't in her sweet spot. And then this incredible little thing came along around the same time as she actually moved city. She moved to Bristol, where I am now. And this amazing thing came along at the same time as she moved to Bristol called Airbnb. And Airbnb was a revelation for my mother because she had an opportunity to essentially dictate the terms on which she hosted her guests. And so she was able to leave out breakfast for them. They could make their own breakfast and she could enjoy her mornings in her style. Now, this is actually the end of the sweet spot story for my mother. Because simply having the guest house was the start, right? She had always loved hosting dinner parties and hosting people and really understood about a deep level of customer service from years spent in the hotel industry. But also wanted to do something that was a bit more on her terms. So having a guest house for her was her first example of what it is to be in your sweet spot. Right, taking all of her experience in the hotel trade, taking all of her love of hosting people and being in connection, and bring it together into an offering that really worked for her for a time. But of course, as we know from the start of this story, the early mornings began to grate. And so the sweet spot became even sweeter when Airbnb came along, and she's been able to now for many years run a guest house on her terms. And it's a wonderful thing to see. So what is there to take from this story of my mum and her sweet spot for you? Two things I invite you to consider. One is that your sweet spot may change. And here we heard in the story of my mother that hers got sweeter as she really understood what she wanted more and more. Right? First, it was simply to do something on her own terms, a guest house that combined her skills and experiences and passions. And then she was able to iterate that, to develop that, to enhance that when Airbnb came along. So the idea is that your sweet spot may change and evolve and develop, and that is a very natural process. One of the things that has been particularly gratifying in the early days of Greater Life so far is to help our members shift their sweet spot, change direction a bit so that their business is now more aligned with who they are and perhaps with the customers they most want to serve. And the second thing I invite you to consider is that if you are not right now operating in your sweet spot, do you have any sense of what that might be? And rather than thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to take the leap and get there immediately. What would a single step in the right direction of your sweet spot look like and feel like? And can you today put together a list of maybe 6 or 7 single steps that are directionally correct, i.e. they are heading towards your sweet spot, even if they may not be anywhere quite near it yet, but at least it's a step in the right direction. Because the sooner you start moving in that direction, the more you will start to see opportunities to take more steps. It's that age-old adage of, as soon as you buy a red car, every car on the road seems to be red, right? That where we focus, so will energy flow. And if you can focus on what will be a step in the right direction towards your sweet spot and take that step, you begin a process of momentum that is inevitable as long as you keep taking the steps. All right. So this is a quick little coffee cast, inspired by spending some time at my dear mother's house. I hope the story of her sweet spot has helped you to clarify yours. And if you're in it, awesome. How can it be improved? And if you're not quite, what is a step you could take this week towards it? All right. Have a fantastic day.